Otherwise, today we're continuing our relationship goals series. So if you were here with us last week, we actually went over this relationship with the world and how we can build friendships and interact with people in the world. However, today we're actually going to be looking at relationships with Christians. And so we've got our panelists here who are going to be going through that with us. So it's exciting. And so even though I know all of them quite well in some areas, how about you all introduce yourselves, what gathering you're a part of, and all that. Kick us off, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sammy. So I'm gathering leader with my husband Kieran at North, and I've been in Divergent for 5 years. There we go. Hi. For 5 years now. I'm from Orange, New South Wales, and I've been in Canberra for 7 years. It's a short little intro. And I got saved when I was 12 years old and grew up in a Christian home. Yeah. Your turn.
That's awesome.
I'm Shaun. Elise and I, with Cameron and Kayla, we lead City South here. So, I'm an Australian-born Chinese, which means something to some people and not so much to others. I grew up Buddhist. My mum's still Buddhist. I was an engineer for the last 7 years or something, and now I've gone back to study industrial design. What else? And I work in administration. So that's sort of my spiel. I was saved after uni in 2012, and that was a long time ago. And I've been here since 2016, which is probably about 7 years. Is that right? Yes. Yep.
It's good stuff.
My name's Jess, and my husband and Will go to the Queanbeyan Church. I've been a part of Divergent for maybe 7 years, and I became a Christian around that time as well. So when I was about 20, I became a Christian. I was not brought up in a Christian home either.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about yourselves. We will be doing I'll be taking some questions. So my number is actually on the screen just there. So if you want to ask a question today, shoot it through, and we'll do our best to get to them. Otherwise, I'd love us to go through some questions this morning. And actually, Shaun, can you kick us off with this one? What do you do to build good relationships within the church? And then, feel free to jump in, Sam and Jess.
For building good relationships in the church, outside of the church, I don't know if I have thoughts about it being different.
Yeah.
But I've got written down here, because I talked to Elise about it last night. It's time, thick skin, and vulnerability. So you kind of have to spend time with people. It's inevitable. You do need to have thick skin, because a lot of the time you might be like, I'm going to plan this thing, and you catch up with this guy or this girl or whatever. And a lot of the time it doesn't work out because they're busy. So you got to be patient with how long it might take. Sometimes it doesn't work, and you just try. And then you got to be vulnerable, because if you're not vulnerable, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to really talk about what is really important to you. And so being vulnerable looks like actually asking for help as well. You can't always be in a position of control or strength. You have to be willing to ask for the help as well, because if you don't ask for help, people will feel like they're not going to ask you for help. You kind of need to make yourself, I don't know, you need to owe someone something for them to feel okay asking you for help, because they're like, oh, well, he owes me now, so I don't feel bad. But I think everyone's like that. Everyone's sort of like, oh, well, I'll be shy until they stop being shy. And sometimes it means that we need to reach out and actually be vulnerable when we're weak as well. And I think that's been something that's hard to learn, because for the longest time I've always thought, oh, well, if I want to connect to people, then I need to be there for them. But then I also need to let people be there for me. Otherwise, it's just too one way. Everything is two way. So yeah. I think those are the things.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, Jess, Sammy, you guys got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think when I read this question, Kieran also reminded me about the verse in John 13, I think it is, where it says, they will know you are my disciples by the way that they love one another. And so I think like that's a broad statement, but just genuinely loving each other and serving one another. Like Jesus said, like to wash each other's feet, like Jesus washed his disciples' feet. And so just coming in humility to others, and as Shaun said, remaining vulnerable with each other, and also remaining accountable. I think, that's a really crucial part of it. Just, really opening up your lives even when it feels awkward, and just sharing every detail of your life. But it really does open that door and allow God to work in that relationship.
I think the only other thing I'd add is to be available. I think often we are all very busy and we have our life that's full of all of these things, and the person who needs you might just text you out of the blue when you're supposed to be sleeping in, or you have all these other plans. And I think being available is so important to showing other people that you care for them, to do life with them.
That's so good. Yeah, me and Kayla have, Kayla's my wife, we've organised like sleep-in days, so we give each other sleep-ins, but I happen to organise a catch-up on Saturday morning at like 8, and so I ruined her sleep-in day. But it's all, but it's good to be available. I love that thick-skinned availability, vulnerability. I think they're key issues. And so, I guess coming into our next question, it's actually from James 2:9, and it actually addresses the sin of showing favoritism. And so, Sammy, actually, I'd love for you to start this off. How do you make sure we don't have cliques with inside the church?
I guess our natural tendency as humans is to just sort of go towards people that we feel comfortable with and people who are similar to us. I think we avoid this by like just getting out of your comfort zone, like going and talking to people who you wouldn't usually talk to, or people who are quite different than you. And something that Kate and Rach have also shared and emphasised is like inviting people into your homes, but if you're a single person or a couple, inviting families into your home. Ooh. I don't know what that's doing. Don't let your life stage limit you. Because I think there's so much value in just getting to know others who are different to you, because that's the kingdom.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that, And if you're by yourself, partner with someone. I think that's incredible. And open up your house and have that. Shaun, Jess, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think being aware of it is super important. I agree completely. We naturally gravitate to the people of comfort, people who we know or we look up to. And like a church is a beautiful environment where we get to meet people from all different walks of life. And just as a believer who's been like on the journey for a little while, I remember someone spoke into my life once and said, I don't come to church to receive, I come to church to serve others. And I think that mindset meant I wasn't looking to feel comfortable, I was looking to see how I could do life with someone else, I suppose. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's some wisdom right there. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
Sorry.
Oh, no, you go.
I'll just quickly add before I forget. I think as well, so we have those close friendships in the church as well, like our best friends or whatever. I think something I've learnt too is that sometimes I won't even talk to my close friends on a Sunday, and that's not such a bad thing. I think, they know your heart, and if you're talking to someone who's new, I think that's far richer than just catching up with your close friend on a Sunday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because that life comm is where you go to fill up, right? Where you see those friends and they speak into your life. Take the opportunity to speak into other people, or get to know other people on a Sunday as well.
I think the only other thing I'd add to that is if you see like there's cliquey stuff happening at church, it's important if you already know that it's happening, then lead by example and connect to someone who I suppose might not be in your group of friends, or getting to know different people as an effort to like bridge the gap between different groups, is also important.
That's so good. It actually reminds me, my wife has like this statement where it's like, you're all standing in a circle but facing outwards. So it's like you all have each other's backs, but it's inclusive because you can invite other people in. And so I think, it's amazing. I think that's cool. So the next question actually is, and I think it's easier said than done, but it's out of Ephesians 4:3, and it says, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. And so, Jess, I'd actually love for you to start us off on how do you overcome offense that you experience from other believers, other Christians, and even maybe from close friends, and then how do you keep the unity of the Spirit in that?
It's so funny you've asked me this question. I didn't know how to answer this one. I talked to Will last night in the car, and I'm like, when was the last time I was truly offended at church? And it actually made me think back a few years ago when I first started serving in kids ministry. I was very busy. So I was serving at multiple services. I was in my final year of my undergrad, and I was working 2 jobs. Like, I was full, but I did not feel burnt out. And I know now in hindsight that's because I was just seeking after God. But it came to a period where I started to grumble, and I started to become very tired and worn out. And I think that is where I became very offended by the church, because I felt like I was serving and serving and serving, and that was going unnoticed. But I know now on my own journey with God that, that wasn't coming from a place of walking with God. That was selfish ambition or desire in my eyes. I was, I'd seen Jesus across the water, and I'd gone to walk out, and I'd been overcome by the waves, kind of thing. I think that was the last time I was offended in the church, and I know to look to God. Look for the cause of your offence, I think, and where that offence has come from. It could be from yourself, not necessarily from others.
Yeah, so good. Shaun, Sammy, any thoughts?
I was talking to Elise about this as well. I was just like, how do I answer this? I think one thing is, if you're offended, then you need to pursue a resolution with the person who's offending you. There's no better way of like avoiding like your words becoming gossip than like just talking to the person who you're upset with. And then there's this other thing. I looked this up midweek because I was talking to Elise about it. But it's like Hebrews 12:15 talks about not letting bitterness take root in your heart, because it actually harms the people around you when you become bitter. You get sort of angry, and it's like the analogy of running in a close group of people, and you're all fine, and then suddenly you start to get bitter and you start elbowing everyone around you, and eventually you find yourself running on your own, like, because nobody wants to run next to you anymore. Like, so don't let bitterness like take root in you, and it's like a biblical concept to like actually make sure that you don't allow bitterness to like settle in your heart, because it's going to turn you into like a different person. So to pursue that clarity with that person, like, you could be wrong also, is the important thing you realize. Like, just because I'm upset with, I don't know, Sammy for some reason, like, I might go and confront you and then turn around and realize that I'm in the wrong, I'm being hypocritical, and then like I can let it go. But like, if you keep it in your own head, then you might be self-righteous, and then you might go around just like being grumbly and annoying to everybody else.
Yeah, I think I love this verse. I feel like it really speaks for itself, because it says make every effort. And I actually recently experienced this verse in my own life, where I really did have to make an effort to keep unity with a person in my life. And yeah, it's not comfortable. Like, it's really hard and awkward at first, but it's so worth it. And yeah, I would add on to Shaun exactly what you were saying. Because when we keep that bitterness in our heart, it is a bit like a poison, like it will destroy us. And so I was just thinking of Matthew 18:15, where it actually says, if your brother or sister sins against you, then go and confront them, like go and tell them. Or even if it's the other way, like if you've done something wrong, I think just openly speaking about it really does help. But first, in doing so, just check the motivation of your heart. Like, are you going to go and speak to this person just to prove that you were right about something and they were wrong? Or are you doing it to find a resolution and to bring unity and peace in the situation? And so I think, first checking the motivation of your heart, bringing it to God and openly asking God, like, search my heart, bring attention to the things that I need to see. And just seeing that we are all at fault, like we all make mistakes. I think really talking openly to people does help.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say 9 times out of 10, people don't realize that they've done any wrong. And so when you go chat to them, it often can solve it. I'd actually like to add on to the back of this question. Have you been on the other side of it where you've caused offense and someone has sought out to help or to, resolve the situation? And what did that look like? And is there any practical things from being on the other side as well? Like aspects of humility, maybe, if you've got any examples of how to approach when someone is like, hey, you did me wrong.
Totally. That situation that I was talking about, actually, in her eyes, like I had caused offense. And I'm so glad, like she brought things up from a couple of years ago that I had no idea about. And she said that she prayed about it and she wished that she talked to me sooner about it. And it just would have been so much better because she wouldn't have held on to that bitterness. And I'm so glad, because I was like, wow, that was so wrong. Like I wish I knew, like, thank you for bringing it up with me. So, absolutely. Just coming in humility, not being defensive. Even though it's really hard as well.
Any other thoughts, Jess, Shaun?
I have experienced it, and it's interesting. Sometimes, as the person who's offending, you just like, I don't know what I did. And then you talk about it, and like, it doesn't resolve. So you really have to push back on scripture sometimes. Like in that scenario, we both really didn't agree. So I'm just like, all right, well, fine. Like, I'm really sorry that you feel this way, but like at the same time, let's resolve it properly. So went to Matthew 18 and like the whole, bring it before others, because he'd already confronted me, and he's just like, I think you've wronged me. And it's just like, no, this is what I did. And so like to resolve it, we got other people to be around when we talked about it. And at the end of the day, it was more about like having people there to support us have a more constructive conversation. Because when it was just the two of us, it was just an argument, and then it was like no one was listening to the other person. So it was really bad. But sometimes, we end up there. I rarely get into those situations, but that one time it did happen. It's like, I'm glad the Bible actually says something about how to resolve things. Because it wasn't like, oh, my opinion is we have to do it this way so that we can talk things out. It was like, oh, well, I don't actually know how to resolve this between you and myself. So being able to go back to the Word, and like sometimes I feel bad for trying to work it out myself. But going back to the Word is actually extremely helpful. So that's good.
I am a verbal processor, and my husband has called me out on this many times, and I think this is where I have caused probably the most offence, both to him and to others. And he's just reminded me to realise that the words you say have impact on other people, even if you don't mean them to be hurtful. The way you deliver it is important, and to tame your tongue, as the Bible says, is a practical thing that I am working on. Thank you, Will Straw.
So good. No, that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I like what you said, Shaun, that sometimes in making every effort means bringing in other people to help. Sometimes, yeah, both parties aren't seen eye to eye. It's good to bring in other people. And I think the Bible speaks on that as well. So coming into our next question, and anyone can jump in on this one, is what are some routines or practices that you've implemented in your life to help build relationship with others? And yeah, and how does this look practically?
It's like, as far as I don't have any routines, but the practice is to be available. And I think this is what Jess was saying before, but being available, it also means in Acts it talks about when all the believers, sold their properties and gave it to church leaders so they could spread between themselves whatever are needed. But in today's terms, I suppose our church structure is a bit different, but it's talking about our time. And it's I could be spending time building my career or studying or, making more money, working longer shifts or whatever, and being unavailable. And, or even just giving people food or giving people money when they need it. But it's knowing what you need. It's I can't give up all my time to the boys because I'm married to Elise and there's unity there. And before we were married, it was just me and the guys. And we would spend time together, talk about God, study the word, and just hang out. It wasn't always studying the word. I'm not some kind of, we did many other things to build relationships and just have a good time. But there is a division of you have to look after your family, and you also have to look after the people around you. And sometimes that means giving up sleep. There's so many conversations I used to have on the stairwell in our flat with my housemate when he rocked up at 12 o'clock and we talked to 1, and I still have to get up at 8 the next day. It's okay, well, this is part of giving that up. And that's just a mindset to go, well, this is what I've had, well, this is what I've got. And what can I afford to give you without sacrificing things at other people's cost? I think sometimes I sacrifice the quality of my work, but I'm maturing. But yeah, there's just having the mindset of giving what you can is probably the only practical thing I can say about it. Yeah.
I think on a practical note, again, something that Kate and Rach have mentioned, which I thought was really cool, is actually just setting aside, being available, setting aside a time in your week that you just have open. So if someone says, oh, can we catch up, or do you want to hang out, that you have that delegated time already there. Because I know our weeks get quite busy, have this and that. But yeah, I think that's really prioritizing people. Or if nothing pops up, then make the effort to reach out to someone and just say, hey, do you want to catch up? Yeah.
The only other thing I would add is be intentional with catching up, valuing those people in your congregation, valuing where they're at in life, what they might need. Just be intentional with catching up with them. But yeah, I think being available is a massive thing, and I think they're both really great things.
For sure. And yeah, I think there'll be trial and error as well. You'll know what works for you, and going from there as well. I think that's cool. I like that. So yeah, Shaun, I'd like to actually direct this question to you because I know you're one of the most loving people that I know, and you got a pastor's heart. But obviously people know that as, I hope we all know and have experienced this, Christians are meant to be nice, or on some level there's commandments, right, to love one another, be patient with one another. And so how do we show that we genuinely, how do I say this word? Genuinely, oh my goodness. Yeah, that word. Can you say that in the microphone?
Genuinely.
Yeah, care for people, and we're not just doing it because we're commanded. We actually care. Got any thoughts?
Yes. yeah, to show people you genuinely care, it's like there are all the times in the week that we meet up. So there's like today, Wednesday, if you have a life call on a Wednesday, I do a Tuesday morning Bible study. And those are the regular intervals that I actually see people. And outside of that, we catch up. But, there is a difference when you turn up, and there's a difference when you're really excited to be there. And like, if you want people to know that you care, you kind of have to care about them. So, being there and wanting to be there, like, we were sick this week, couldn't make it to LifeCom, and like, I was really upset about that. But like, that's because like I thought about the prospect of what that meant. And it's like, oh well, I actually want to be with those guys. Yeah. And so, like, yeah, and this is the thing. If you don't care, because I know that can, like, I think I'm predisposed to liking people, but like that's not always the case. And no, so I'm not like, no, I mean like it's a real thing. Like sometimes you just don't want to be around people, or you're just not fond of the people that are in your life right now. And I think praying for the people that like are in your workplace that are very different to you, or who are studying with you, or people you bump into all the time but you might not have a close relationship with, like actually praying for them in your own time, like God changes you to have a heart for them. So like I don't want to be like, I just like the people I'm around, so like I always miss it when I'm not there, and I'm like excited to be there. But that's not reasonable for the rest of my life or for the rest of your lives. So practically speaking, if you want to really like let people know that you care about them, pray for them. And don't tell them that you're praying for them. Just do it between you and God. And then the rest of it will come out in the wash. Like, they'll feel it. Because I really believe God will do a work. But, yeah, I think that's probably the only thing. Other than that, it's all just, like, trying to pretend that you like him. But, like, don't bother with that. So, yeah, I think praying and God will work with you. Yeah.
No, I think that's good. Yeah, any other thoughts?
I would say also praying with them, like with believers. I've found that, challenging at times, and it's something I'm still learning. But, it's so valuable because you're like giving the glory back to God, and you're honoring him and seeking him in that moment when you're with someone. And even non-believers as well, because you never know, like, they might need it, and they might say yes, and they might not, and that's all right. You might get rejected. But, I think prayer is so powerful, so praying for them and with them as well, is a really beautiful privilege that we have.
I know one of the questions coming up is about questions, but I think asking questions of people is a really great way to get to know them and find out what's going on in their life. And that's showing you care for them, because you want to know what's important to them and how you can pray for them, and how you can support them practically if they need a meal or they need something else. If you ask those questions, you can find out where they're at in their journey.
Sorry, I would also just say, also knowing their love language is fun. So knowing, that's knowing someone intentionally as well. Like if someone likes to receive gifts, then sometimes that might be nice, give them a gift, and that shows that you actually know them quite well too.
No, that's good. No, I think that's awesome. So the next question is, I'd actually like to point it to you, Jess. I'd say we've all felt this tension in friendships and relationships on when to show grace and when to speak truth. And so how would you balance showing both grace and truth within our relationships?
Again, this is that question that I was like, I won't get asked this. No, I did think about this, and I think it's really important that you are walking with someone. If you are if you are in someone's life and you know who they are, when you speak the truth, you can do it in love, like it says to speak the truth in love. And if you are not on that journey with them and you just say, this is the sin in your life, I mean, there might be a place for that, but in my own walk, I don't know if that's loving someone. You don't know where they're at or how you can practically help them overcome whatever it is, or disciple. You can't disciple if you're not like doing life with them. I think it's important. Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
It's good. You guys got any thoughts on that?
I think I'll say one thing about grace is that, like, you know how earlier, Cam, you were saying Christians are meant to be nice? And I was like, well, are they? I mean, like, and I think when we're talking about grace, it's like, it might look like you're being nice, but you need to wrap your grace in love as well. Yeah. So often we say, oh, we need to give true words to people. So if you see someone who's about to harm themselves, or you see someone who's neglecting to take care of someone else, and you're like, I need to pull you up on this. And then you want to say whatever you're going to say, which is going to come across as a criticism in love. So by saying in love, you need to care about how they're going to feel when you say it. Right? But then when it comes to being gracious to someone, like, you need to wrap that in love too, in the sense that it's one thing for me to watch someone go and do something foolish. But like, if I really loved them, then the grace that I'd extend to not reprimand them or be like, hey, what are you doing? Shake my finger. Like, is more like, well, I'm watching you do this, and like, as much as I don't want to upset you, and as much as I don't want to I don't want to incur that cost in our relationship, it's like, well, now he's going to think I'm the nosy whatever guy who's going to tell him off every time he wants to go out and party or whatever. I don't want to be that guy. But at the same time, it's like, well, actually, I'm starting to notice that this is harming you or something. Or I think your habit of stealing paper clips is going to turn into like embezzlement of money. So like I really need to talk to you about this, and like, in grace, I'm just like, I understand, like, it's just a paper clip, but man, dude, like, you don't want this to snowball. Like, so, like, do you know what I mean? So it's about having love covering both grace and truth aspects in what we do. I don't know if that's a little bit too hand wavy. You can come and talk to me about it after if you're like confused about what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's
No, that's great. That's great. And it's true as well. At some areas, some things can snowball. And so I think there's wisdom in learning to spot certain things and calling them out maybe earlier than leaving them and then there being a big issue. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, Sammy, sorry, what would you like to say?
I would probably say just trusting God, that like, speaking the truth is often confronting sometimes, and sometimes that's how God works. Like, when we speak the truth to someone, we just have to trust God and know that He's going to speak to them or work on their hearts, or vice versa for us as well. So just leaving it at that, like, not trying to add things onto what God says in His word, but just, speaking it out in love. Again, knowing your motivation and,
Yeah, I think it really has to come from a place of humility, like knowing that, the word says we're all fall short of the kingdom of God. Like, it's not, that person is not worse than you. We have all sinned. So when you see that in someone else and you're doing life with them, to come from a place of love is a place of humility as well.
just one last practical thing is there's no shortcut to being good at this. Yeah. I think the only way I've learnt how to balance grace and truth is through experience. Yeah. And I think being having my temperament, I've often given people way too much grace and just watched them do something that later on they regret. And I was like, I could have said something. So don't beat yourself up. Like, this stuff takes hindsight to learn. So just like, as a very practical thing, don't beat yourself up when you've either dished out way too much truth without any grace, or just been gracious without enough foresight. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's amazing. I would also add on to the back of this question, and it can be open-ended for you, is what do you do though? Because we talked a lot about like we've seen in their lives and we're walking with them, but what if you see something in someone else's life that you're like, oh, this could be bad, but you have no friendship with them, no relationship with them. So then how do you go about handling that? Because in I think a practical sense, I'm not going to be best friends with everyone, but I could see something and go, so what's the best way to handle that in someone's life that I am not close with?
I think seek wise counsel. Like there's so many great leaders in our church that are connected with with each other, whether that be a life comm leader or a gathering leader or just someone. Seek wise counsel, not gossip with people that you might just discuss something with, but people who actually, I think wise counsel.
Yeah, that's good.
So I would say, I guess talking to someone who they do know well or who they are close with. And again, not as gossip, but as saying, hey, I'm worried about this person or like this or that. Can you go and check up on them and pray for them? And so.
No, that's good. We're giving away all our tactics today, so you're going to know. Nah. Yeah, but Shaun, do you have any other thoughts on this one? Or?
I think I've been really bad with this one. Often when I see that happen, I'm like, just make friends really quickly. But that doesn't actually work. So, yeah. No, I mean, obviously there are other people in their lives too. And you hope that as a church, there's enough unity between you and the people in their lives. If you're not close to them, then you're close to someone in their life that you can sort of mention that to. But yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that's great. So we got another question. So Sammy, what are some questions you ask to start conversations? But I'd also like to jump on the back of that. I know you work in retail. Have you learned any skills from retail that help in this area?
Interesting. Yeah, I actually love my retail job for this reason as well. This was the question that I was like, I hope I do not get asked this question. Because to be honest, I'm a small chatter. I ask the generic questions, and I think that's actually okay. I've come to realize that's actually fine because I'm genuinely wanting to know about their lives or how their week was or this or that. And I mean, there's the other side of the spectrum where I've heard people say, we should just be asking what's God been speaking to you this week or what's God doing in your life? And to be honest, when I get asked that question, I sometimes really struggle because I may have had a week where I haven't spent enough time with God. And that's okay too, you can be honest about that. And I think those questions are so valuable as well. But yeah, also just getting to know people. Retail, I've found that, customers actually respond better and they buy the little extras when you actually talk to them. But it's because I genuinely am wanting to know, what are you doing today or this or that? And you just find out about their lives that way. Generic questions are all right.
That's good. Yeah, for sure. I think that's encouraging. You don't have to think of some elaborate question that unfolds their entire life. It's just what have you been up to? So how about you two? You got any thoughts?
I think I'm on the other end of the scale. And I think the people that I'm catching up with regularly, I think there's a few things I often will ask anyone what they're reading. And that once upon a time came from a place because I was reading something very interesting in the Bible and I really wanted to tell them about it. But they never asked me, and that's fine. But it's a great conversation starter because often people are reading not just the Bible, they're reading a whole lot of different things or listening to different podcasts, and it's so interesting to know where they're at and what they're doing. So that's a question I ask. And the other big one I ask, I'm so sorry, I'm so on the other end of this, is where you're at in your faith. I think we do walk with a lot of people that have been in church for a really long time, and we just presume that they're okay, they've got it all together. And that's often not the case. people have bad days or bad weeks, and I think that obviously finding the moment is obviously not in a massive group or whatever, but when you're one-on-one or in a life comm, just asking, you know, how is your faith, like how are you going really, and giving them the chance to reflect and say, you know, no, I'm not doing really well, I've had a really tough week, and being available to listen and to, you know, help them out on that journey.
It's good.
I agree with Sammy. I'm not much of a, I don't have these great one-liners. I know there's a group in City PM who've made a deck of cards, and they have these icebreakers, so they have 52 icebreakers that are really complicated sometimes. And just very generic questions. But what I find is sometimes, you know, when you talk to somebody and they're an expert in something, the less you know, the better the conversation will go. Like being a novice is sometimes your friend, or sometimes knowing something is actually your enemy, about the other thing, the person, or it's like if you Facebook stalk someone, what are you gonna ask them? It's like, oh, I saw that you grew up here and all this other stuff, and it's just like, oh, that's weird. But it's better to not know about the other person and genuinely take an interest and ask. It's more about listening than it is about.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Being clever. Just listen really hard. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Just do the ratio.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is, I haven't heard that. That's amazing. Yeah, I think I'd add on that. I remember when I was a little bit younger, going to uni, I thought I had to know it all. So people would be like, yeah, I'm studying this. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And I'd have no idea what they're talking about. But then I've become comfortable with going, oh, what is that? And it gives them more of an opportunity, and I think it can add a little bit more of that. I actually care about what you have to say. So yeah, 2 ears, 1 mouth. I love that. But I really liked what you had to say, Jess, as well, with asking those questions. And there's this concept called the power of the second question. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's like, hey, how are you going? And then someone's like, yeah, I'm good. And then it's like, no, actually, no, how are you going? And you can actually find sometimes people will open up more when you go past that. Almost, not that it's bad, but sometimes it can be a little bit superficial. But if you're really trying to dig deep, ask the second question, go again. And I had a friend do this to me, and then when I realized the concept, I was like, you've been lying to me. No, but it's like they genuinely cared, and they wanted to know. So, but is there any final thoughts on this topic that any of you would like to share?
I once heard a pastor say that your best friends should be in the church. And I just kind of was reflecting on that, and I was like, I think I personally do agree in that. And if you don't have close friends in the church, then make every effort. Or I went through a time in my life when I first moved to Canberra, it probably took about 2 years until I genuinely came to this place before God, and I was really upset, and I was like, even to Kieran, I was like, Kieran, I don't have any friends, what's happening? I had friends I'd say hi and bye to, but I prayed and God totally delivered, and he gave me friends like that, 3 specific friends during that time that I saw and was like, wow, thank you, God, for putting those people in my life. So I truly believe that if you're in that place, then just pray and also make the effort, see people, because someone else might be in the same place as you. And God will deliver, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that.
I think I really like this analogy about people's relationship with God that John Piper gives. He says that never prescribe how someone will encounter God, because Jesus is a living being. And so why would you go, I walked up a hill one time and then that's where I met him. So therefore you should all go walk up a hill and go meet Jesus, right? And I think in the same way, when we think about people, that everyone is having their walk with Jesus, or everyone is having their walk in their life. And in the whole scheme of the universe, that's only going to happen once. So every time you get to talk to someone, that's watching 2 stars collide. You don't get to see that all the time. And so like recognizing like how unique each encounter is gonna be, that you might see God do something or you might not, but like you might see somebody change their life. You might watch those key moments, and like being excited about the fact that everyone's going through something different, but that it's like, you know how like you pay $1 million for like limited edition sneakers. Like, why would you not pay attention to something that's free that's limited edition?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's limited edition. So, like, having that mindset, I think, is what makes me not sleep when I'm just talking to somebody. Like, it's like, I could go to sleep, but like, I'm talking to you, and that's what I want to do instead of sleeping, because it's not going to happen again. So, I think that's really valuable and maybe encouraging, hopefully.
Such wise words, you guys. I just was reminded, like Josh and Ange, when they were here, they always said, you know, you're not meant to do life alone, and you don't come to church to look at the back of someone else's head. And I think building relationships in the church, I'm always reminded of what they said.
And I just want to share this little thing. I forgot. This morning as I was driving here, I actually saw, I was at a traffic light, stopped, and there was like, you know how birds fly in unison together? I don't know what birds they were. I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't have my glasses on. I was like, pigeons, doves. That would be majestic if they were doves. But yeah, and it was just so beautiful, because I just thought of that picture. It's like, that really is what it's like when you're friends with people who have the same goal, who are kingdom focused. It's like, yeah, I was reading about it as well. I was like, why do birds fly in unison? And they were also elevated, like they were moving higher, and it's this thing called thermals, I don't know, where it's like hot air rises and they like going with it, but they were so in unison, like they just stuck together, and they were going around and around and just moving upwards. And it's like, wow, that is so beautiful. Like, thank you, God, that we can do that as believers together as we pursue Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's powerful. That's awesome. I'll have to also go look into how birds fly. But no, it's cool. No, I love that. I guess one final thought, or do you have any one like encouragement when it comes to this? Like, just do it. Like, just encouragement. I know we've been quite encouraging, but any encouragements that you would like to give?
I think this is going to sound like the opposite of what you're asking for, but like when
Just do it.
Like, it's sometimes it does get hard. Don't get discouraged when it gets hard. Like, it's okay that it's hard.
I think it's supposed to be hard,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's your flesh dying to serve
Yeah.
God and to serve others.
Don't make it harder than it needs to be, though. Like, if it's good, don't make it bad just so it's hard. Like, yeah, no, but yeah, you're right. Yeah,
This is too easy,
It
so I've got to
probably-
make it harder on this friendship. More accountability too quickly. Like,
It probably depends on the relationship, though, right? Yeah.
no, it's good.
Yeah. I can't imagine what the disciples were like. Like, we can read about it, but can you imagine the disciples and Jesus were together all the time for so long? I'm sure they rubbed up against each other a little bit, and that's all right. Like, I don't know if anyone's watched The Chosen, but it was really cool to see that episode where it's like, you know, Matthew seemed to be very different. And then, yeah, Simon was complete opposite to him. But then, yeah, just making every effort, and yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it for today. If you've got any more questions, yeah, come chat to them. I think they're going to be around for a while. So come chat to them. You know, make it difficult for them. Not that more than it needs to be. But otherwise, thank you so much for this morning. And yeah, and I guess thank you guys so much for coming up here and sharing your wisdom and your thoughts.